One of the most intimidating things about managing your own rental property is when you have to find a new tenant. It's so intimidating to know how to advertise it, show it, and then pick the right one. Now, this video isn't how to do that, but instead to talk to you a little bit about how to think about it, the series of wins you need to have as the property owner to get that successful lease from a qualified applicant. Why should you believe me? Well, I'm just Jen. I'm a real estate investment educator, advocate, and broker at One Focus Property Management. I've personally leased thousands of apartments. My companies have leased thousands of apartments and homes. And so we really know what it takes to get these properties leased as quickly as possible for top rent from qualified tenants. Now, before we get into the 10 steps, remember that these prospects that you're working with are likely going through one of the most stressful times in their lives. The 5 most stressful things that can happen to a person: get married, get divorced, have a baby, change jobs, and move homes. And you're almost always, when moving, doing one of those other life events at the same time. So you can imagine that the prospects, the people that we're working with, they're really stressed. So having patience with them as they work through this gauntlet as well is going to go a long way. The 10 wins you need to get in order to lease the property. Let's start at number 1. The first one is you need to be where your qualified prospect is seeking housing. So is your qualified prospect driving up and down the streets looking for rent signs? Are they on smartpads.com? Are they on hotpads.com? Are they on Trulia or Zumper or Zillow? Wherever they are, you need to be. So if they're going to that resource, you need to be there and present with your listing. The second win you need to, as I say, get the click. When you search for a property on one of these websites, you might put in 3 bedrooms, this zip code, maximum amount of rent, and I need to have my dog. Great, and it'll come up with a list of properties that meet those standards. Now, all you're gonna get to see as the viewer, the user, is a teeny tiny little thumbnail picture, a headline, sometimes an address, a rent amount, and maybe bedrooms and bathrooms. That information, that mix, needs to get the click. If it's not attractive, if it doesn't make sense, if your 2-bedroom apartment has a much higher rent than other 2-bedroom apartments and it's not justified in that headline, people aren't going to click that. So we want to make sure that we're getting the click. So whatever we're putting there that's going to show up in that small mix of information justifies usually price. Step 3, once we've gotten the click, we need to answer all of that prospect's information, because what do we want them to do next? We want them to take action to come see this property, and that would be fantastic. So they need to know, hey, does it have a dishwasher? How close is it to the highway? Is it going to accept my kitty cat? How soon do I have to move in? Hey, what are the standards for moving in? Do you collect first and last month's rent? What's the application process like? So when you're having this listing out and these folks are looking at all the information, we want to make sure that we're answering all those questions, giving a very complete advertisement. Now, this might mean using links and using a website in order to post all that information. We certainly do it that way. We're always trying to direct our traffic back to our website where we have all of the information, super easy to use and actionable, so the prospect can take the next step. Speaking of which, Step 4, make the appointment. And this is just an admin task. So our prospect needs to be able to set an appointment at their convenience that works for you as well to meet at that property. Now remember, when people are looking on the website or at a listing, they're usually doing it during their leisure time, which could often be outside of business hours. So having a way to allow that prospect to make that appointment in that moment while they're convicted and feel ready to take that step is so important. So having something automated, having a way for them to set up that appointment easily, like they do on our website, is crucial. Step 5, if you thought step 4, making the appointment, was hard, step 5, keeping the appointment, even harder. You have to imagine you're taking 2 people in the world doing their own things, getting them into vehicles or transport to a common place at a common time at a set point. Anything could happen: weather, emergencies, or even just forgetfulness. So getting that person there, often through a series of reminders, follow-ups, and confirmations, is a great way to win this step. Step 6. We are step 6 into 10 steps, and we finally have the prospect at the property. We need that place to look great, smell great, feel great to that prospect. We really need to win them over. Let them see that this property is going to make a great home. So it's got to be clean. It's got to be well lit. It's got to be well landscaped. It's got to be quiet. Little things mean a lot during these tours. In order to get through the next 4 steps, you really have to win step 6, where the prospect falls in love with the property as they're there to see it. Step 7, we're getting into the nitty-gritty, folks. We're at application time. I always say this is where property management is that art and a science, right? Because as leasing agents and leasing managers, we're out there letting people know we're the most amazing property managers to work with, and we have the best properties and the most attractive rent and amenities. But then it does come down to the rental application. So that's where step 7 comes in, is we need to get this rental application completely filled out by the person who's pursuing the property. And this means releasing a lot of personal information, from social security numbers, dates of birth, pay stubs. It could be information about maybe things that have impacted their credit. So they might be sharing things about previous bankruptcies or tax liens, divorces, anything. This is a really vulnerable stage for our prospect, and we have to treat them really respectfully and with empathy, guiding them through this process, because there is no other way to work around getting them qualified. But this is a shift change from where it's been. We've been really meeting them from a sales perspective, and now we're starting to come at them from like a compliance perspective. So step 7 is tough, but for the well-trained leasing agent, it's no problem to help work prospects through it. Step 8, this is all on you. Move, get that application processed. That applicant deserves an answer just as soon as possible. And remember, they need housing. They are actively seeking housing. So they're out looking, trying to get something confirmed. So it might take you 3 days to process that application. Don't be surprised if your applicant finds other housing in the meantime. So it's your job to do as best an underwriting process as you can, as quickly as possible, letting that applicant know definitively whether their application has been approved or not. 2 steps left. Getting this application approved is step 9. So step 9 is usually the leasing manager talking to their boss or a head of underwriting, somebody who's going to approve or deny this application. And oftentimes this is a process wherein that person in authority might ask for more details, might ask, hey, can I have some backup documentation on this claim they're making on the application? And that's where the leasing agent's going to work with the prospect, getting the information that the leasing manager needs. So it's really important we don't shirk this step. We follow policy, we investigate everything, we make the best possible decision we can for our clients. And the very last step, you have not secured that lease until you've done step 10, collected the security deposit, rent, and gotten the lease signed. This is where you consummate this transaction. It actually happens. We pay the money they owe, we issue possession of the property on the assigned date, and now we're done. And of course, the tenant has the privilege of moving all of their stuff from one place to the next and executing on that major maneuver. You can see now why leasing a property isn't as simple as putting out a sign, finding somebody who's willing to say they want it, and then bada bing, bada boom, you've got a tenant. In order to make sure you're earning market rent from the most qualified tenants available, you need to do incredible marketing and advertising and follow a really strict process and procedure for vetting and qualifying tenants at your properties. You know, we really feel like we've nailed the leasing process around here, and it works for us in North Central Pennsylvania. I know sometimes people are taking applications prior to showing properties. Have you whittled this down to less than 10 steps? Do you feel good about it? Or maybe you're doing more than 10? Share with me in the comments. Let me know.